Hey, welcome back, David. Thanks so much for joining me and again for another stewardship conversation.
Thanks, Katie. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So today, the question that we are going to be discussing is if I invest in BRI funds, will my returns be lower? So before we get into that question of will my returns be lower, David, why don't you explain to us what a BRI fund is?
Sure, that's a great question, Katie. So biblically responsible investing really is the idea that you would align your investments with your biblical values. And so
Mm.
the way that I learned about biblically responsible investing was when Hobby Lobby went to the Supreme Court. Some of you may have heard my story, but when Hobby Lobby went to the Supreme Court, they didn't want to provide abortion manufacturing, abortion care to their employees. And then it came out the next day in the news that Hobby Lobby in their 401k owned abortion manufacturing pills, in manufacturing companies. So
Yeah.
there's kind of a dissimilarity, and no knock on Hobby Lobby, they didn't know, and that's how most people are with biblically responsible investing. They just don't know what they're invested in inside of their investment account. So biblically responsible investing is really, I think, just another way that we can apply stewardship and the principles of stewardship in our investing. And so we apply principles of stewardship by having a budget and living on less than we earn, and in the way that we invest, we can use biblically responsible investing. So it's really just a marrying of our investments and our values.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's awesome. And as believers, it is very important to consider that. We've had many discussions, and I'll link to our conversations in the past about, investing in funds that align more with our values. So I'll link to some of those conversations that we've had in the past for those who want to kind of dive deeper into that. But the question I definitely want to get to and hit on today is this idea of, if I do invest in these biblically responsible investment funds, will my returns be lower? I think that is definitely a concern that many people have. And I think there's definitely a lot packed into that question that we should definitely unpack.
Mhm.
But why don't you give us kind of a ballpark of how you might answer that question for a client?
Sure. I'll start by saying, first, we're a financial advisor, and so governed by the SEC, we can't make any claims about any type of investing as being better, more or better performance. So, I want to start with the parable of the talents, and many people are familiar with the parable of the talents. For anyone who's not familiar, let me just give you a brief background. But basically, three talents, and a master gives each of them a different, a varying level of talent amounts, and each of them goes and does something with it, except for the third one. So one of them doesn't do anything with it. He buries it in the ground and he says, I knew that my master was a harsh and hard man. I'm just going to bury it in the ground. And when the master comes back to see kind of what his reward is, the two that multiplied it and created more income, the master said, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with little, I'll make you ruler over much. And the third one, he says, you're a wicked, lazy, idle, slothful servant. Like,
Yeah.
if you thought I was coming back and you knew I was coming back and you thought I was a harsh man, why didn't you at least give it to the money exchangers and they could have had some interest? So I think I want to start with, this is a heart issue first and foremost. And so when people come to me and they say, "Hey, David, will biblically responsible investing make me more money than traditional investing?" I
Mm.
always want to go back to talk about this parable, because the principle of this parable is not that they were successful. I mean, obviously they made more money for the master than the third one, but he didn't commend them, and he didn't discourage the third one, because he didn't make any money. He discouraged him for not even doing anything with it,
Mm.
not even trying. And so I think our hearts need to be in a place where, God, I want to be as responsible as I can with the money that you've entrusted with me, knowing that you're coming back. And so whether or not the returns are more or less than I would expect, or maybe what the world would expect, I'm doing this as an act of stewardship to you, and I'm not doing this to chase what Proverbs calls ill-gotten gain. And so I think it's really a heart issue. And so I know there are misconceptions, and there are studies that view socially responsible investing, because this is where biblically responsible investing lies under. They show that socially responsible investing has no negative effect on the return of a portfolio. So I don't think there's any reason to avoid biblically responsible investing. In fact, I feel like as Christians, we should be embracing that because collectively we can make a difference. And so I would just go back to the heart issue. It's not necessarily, is this investment going to perform better or worse than maybe a non-biblical investment? It is, I think, truly, God, am I being faithful in what you have given me to manage?
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, David, and just it really does come down to why are we asking this question? Where is our heart at if we are concerned about the returns that we're getting? So concerned. Obviously
Yeah,
we shouldn't just, invest in things that are tanking all
of
the
course.
time if we feel like, yeah, these align with our values, because that
Yeah,
also isn't very good stewardship of our money if we
absolutely.
know that ahead of time. Obviously it's we can't predict the markets, and so we never know what's going to happen with our investments. And so there is always an element of trust in that. But at the same time, yeah, if we're concerned only with the returns that we get on our investments, we really need to do a heart check and just ask ourselves, what is it that we're investing for? For building up
Yeah.
our own kingdoms or building up God's kingdom? That's something that Paul David Tripp says in his book, Redeeming Money, is
Mm.
whenever we do anything with our money, we're always going to build some kingdom, whether it's our own or God's. And that's up to you to
Hmm.
decide. And it's a decision that we make without acknowledging it, and it's something
Hmm.
that we have to be aware of, like kind of go back and be like, where is my money going?
Hmm.
Yeah, did you have any other thoughts on that, David?
Yeah, I just want to finish it out here by saying, Jesus talks about this beautifully when he says that no person can serve two masters. You'll either love one and hate the other, or you'll draw closer to the one and despise the other. And you cannot serve both God and mammon. So, I mean, I know this is a struggle for everyone,
Yeah.
and God has revealed much to me because of the issues in my heart, I feel like. But part of this is, the spirit of mammon. We have to decide. Oh, is this decision to invest, is this to honor God or is this to honor mammon? Is this bringing our heart closer to God or pulling us closer to mammon? So I think it's like you mentioned, it is a heart issue, and we have to examine our hearts.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks so much, David, for your thoughts. I will be sure again to link to some of those conversations we've had, including one about where to find biblically responsible ETFs. Like how can we
Hmm.
look for these things? David shared with us how we can go and search out these specific funds and be investing in those. If you are looking for any very specific investment advice for yourself, definitely reach out to David so he can kind of see your portfolio and understand your goals specifically. Again, this shouldn't be used as personal investment advice, but just a good way to start thinking about this. Again, from that biblical perspective, that's what we're doing here, is answering your money questions in a way that helps you bring your faith more into these conversations and to your answers and responses on how to use your money, because we do always want to be glorifying the Lord in everything that we do, and the gospel really should be impacting all of our actions, including with our finances. So thanks
Amen.
again, David, for being here with me, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Katie. See you later.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any new videos. And if you want to continue the conversation, or if you have any other questions about biblical money management, I want to invite you to our community called Redeeming Your Finances, where you can ask questions and gain encouragement on your journey towards becoming an excellent money manager. I hope to see you there.